Hey, everybody. Wanted to talk about a topic that's been in the news a lot and has been written about a lot, and that is the Great Flattening that happens with middle managers. We're seeing it now. We saw it starting in tech, where they were getting rid of a lot of managers and really saying, we're going to streamline, we're going to do all these things. You saw it at Amazon, you saw it at Google, Meta, all of the big tech companies were doing it. And now it's started to creep into the non-tech world. Walmart just recently announced it. You will probably see and hear more of these in the coming weeks and months. And uh, first, I want to defend middle managers. They're kind of getting a really bad rap here, and someone needs to kind of clear the air about it. Um, and I also want to point out some of the areas where this trend is misguided. This trend is going to cause some really significant problems down the road that organizations aren't thinking about. One of my main assertions about most businesses is they're lazy. In other words, they do something superficially and they don't really think beyond what's going to happen. And this is one of those classic cases. I think they're saying something that superficially, somewhere in their head, makes sense without thinking of any of the consequences in the future. So before I go in too deep into it, I do want to make two concessions that I think are clear. First is there are a lot of bad managers out there, way too many. 60% or more, according to some studies and what I happen to believe, are bad managers. And that's a problem. No doubt about it. That is a problem we have to hit. And the second point is, yeah, orgs need to be restructured. They need to be refigured out. Get some things that were kind of, like I said, lazy, ill-informed, and got into a situation where there's problems. So I'm not denying, number one, that there are bad managers. I think there are way too many of them. I'm also not denying that organizations need to do something. What I am saying, though, is this rush to blame and get rid of middle managers is not the answer. And it's part of the problem that you're going to have going forward. So the first point I want to talk about is something that Andy Jassy of Amazon has been talking about a lot, and it drives me nuts. He says, his main reason for getting rid of middle managers is the bureaucracy. They create this jumble and stops things from happening, and you know they simply gum up the works. And it's just not true. First of all, bad managers do this. Yes, that is very true. Bad managers do this. But here's the point: who hired those managers? Who didn't train those managers the proper way? Who doesn't provide coaching and resources to those managers? Who is asking too much of those managers and the wrong things of those managers? These very companies that are blaming the managers right now. I will tell you, if you talk to any management expert right now, they will say the way we pick managers, the way that you get promoted into manager roles, the criteria they use are just flat out wrong. We pick it because you were a good individual contributor. That means nothing in terms of your performance as a manager. So we pick them wrong. 50% or more of managers say that they're not getting training, and the training they get tends to be weak. It's very heavy on oh well, here's the legalities of it, here's our processes, not on actually how to be a manager. So when they talk about this bureaucracy, it's because they've trained managers in that way. They've said, do this, and that's the only thing they know how to do. And then they're not even being judged properly. So a manager comes in and says, you know, me getting in the way and putting my fingerprints on this is the way to do it. I tell this great story of someone who I talked to who was a good manager, a really good manager. And she went in for her performance review, And the VP said, okay, tell me what you've accomplished this year. And she started going through a list of all the things. My team did this and we got this rolled out. And he went and said, oh, no, no, stop. I know what your team did. What did you do? And that mindset was the team did all this stuff in spite of her, not because of her. As if she wasn't spending a lot of her time working with the team, helping them get the resources, helping them get the skills, coaching them, doing all those things. Had no clue what a manager did. So if that's what managers see, well, of course they're going to want to put their fingerprints on everything because that's the only way you think they are doing something. Real causes, we've set up systems that puts bad managers in place, doesn't train them, and then rewards them for doing the things that we say we don't like. How is your structure set up to evaluate managers? How is your structure set up to encourage managers to not come off the works? You can't just say it. You have to create the structures that do it. And I work with big organizations, and I'm working with one client now where to do something requires the help of 37 people who don't want to help you. It's not that they're bad people. They're just going, I've got a bunch of other stuff to do. Well, if you can't get help, you can't do it. So we create these organizations and we lie about this bureaucracy. Those managers are not gumming it up because they want to, because they like to, because it's a power trip. They're gumming it up because that's what the organization demands of them. Next point I want to talk about is Mark Zuckerberg. Full disclosure, I don't think very highly of a lot of tech executives. And Zuckerberg's, as he's gotten rid of his managers, has said, flatter is faster. And that's typical Zuckerberg type thing. Superficially, at the very, 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 very top level of that thought, yeah, that makes sense, right? Flatter would make sense, right? You don't have as many layers to go through. It's just perfect sense. Except it misses the reality of the situation. The second you leave that very, very top superficial level, that thinking completely falls apart. I think if you are an organization of 15 people, flatter is faster. No sense having structures and levels and things like that. You got 15 people, you can all work together. When you've got thousands and tens of thousands of people, flatter is not going to be faster. It's going to be chaotic. It's going to create a lot of waste. It's going to create a lot of indecision. It's going to create a lot of bad decisions. There's nothing good about, flat when you're that big. Where managers add value and what large organizations need is clarity. Clarity is where speed comes from in an organization. And that's what good managers do. They take a situation and they clarify it. When Mark Zuckerberg or one of his VPs gives an order, that order has to be filtered down to the programmer, to the individual contributor. They give it at such a generic, high-level thing. It's great, great direction. But once you start going in that direction, there's a lot of little specificities, and the manager creates the clarity for that. Okay, the CEO wants to go in this direction. What does that mean for our team? What does that mean for your role? Managers create clarity. The good managers create clarity. And that's where he's going to miss. He's going to see that there's going to be a lot of confusion. There's going to be a lot of redundant work. There's going to be a lot of unnecessary work because there's no clarity there. If you do not allow managers to create that clarity, you're in trouble. It's plain and simple. And again, Zuckerberg's looking at this and going, oh, well, I'll just give everyone the orders. He can't. He doesn't have the time. He doesn't have the energy. He doesn't have the patience. right? He doesn't have the knowledge of that. I mean, think of all the products that Meta has. He doesn't know the deep down levels of all of them. He doesn't know the deep down levels of shipping, of distribution, of all those things. If he thinks that he's going to be faster because of this, yeah, he will make more mistakes faster, and they will be harder to fix. And then the next point I want to talk about, so a lot of this came from an article I read in Business Insider, and um, I'll share it in the notes of the YouTube. But Daniel Zhao kind of makes some points about this, and he kind of takes a both sides perspective, which makes sense. He says organizations past several years, they've hired too much. They were worried about talent, so they were promoting people who weren't ready, but that was a way to keep them. And then they gave them more responsibility by saying, okay, you're going to manage these couple people because that was how you kept employees. So he's right. There was a problem there. They created this, and that has to be fixed. But again, the fix is not getting rid of managers. It's getting rid of bad managers and making sure the good managers stay. And when you think about that problem, how it was created, who created it? It wasn't created by the managers. It was created by the executives. They made decisions because they were panicked and they were thinking short-sighted and they were doing all kinds of things. And then what happens? They go, okay, we got to fix this. And do they take the blame for it? No. They go, well, it's them. And they get rid of other people. And they go, even though we caused the problem, we're going to fix the problem and we're going to punish other people. This is one of my big complaints about organizations is that, they're doing this thing where they're saying, okay, we're going to fix it. And the first thing is, well, who caused the problem? Where did it come from? And it was your thinking that caused it. Yet you're the only one who's not being punished by it. Not only do they, get away with it, but then they decide they're going to trash managers on the way out. And make no mistake about it. When Zuckerberg says stuff like, we don't need managers managing managers managing managers, he's really blaming them, saying they're the problem. He's trashing them. When you know most of the mistakes that came up were him and his VPs. They made all these decisions and made these mistakes, and we see this over and over again. Google, when they let go of 10,000 programmers, and they said, you know what, we hired too many, and the CEO said it was my fault, I did that. Well, guess what? He didn't suffer any consequences. He made a huge mistake that cost the company a ton of money and suffered no consequences. So when we talk about this organization and how this was there, what's the problem? How are we going to avoid that from happening again? And why are you trashing managers on the way out? That's just, it's inexcusable. Let's talk now that they're doing this, right? They're not going to stop. This is their MO. And once some companies see it, other companies are going to start doing it, like a Walmart, and you'll start to see it from other companies. But I want to point out the damage it's going to cause. And this is where, they don't think. They go, oh, we got to cut expenses and we got to do this, so let's do this. And they're not thinking of the proper way to do it in the future. First problem they're going to have is they're essentially telling younger workers the management track is bad, right? Managers are bureaucracy. Managers are gumming up the works. Managers aren't really doing anything. Why would a young person want to be a manager? They don't. And we're seeing that in the stats now. More and more people don't want to be managers. But that is the career path that every organization has created. You start as an individual contributor, and the way you get more money and more responsibilities, you start managing. And then if you do that well, you get to manage even more. And then, so the organization is set up to push people into that career path. And now we've essentially trashed that career path. And employers are going to go, I don't want that. Okay, and that's going to lead to huge issues. I'm blanking on the company. I think it was Dell. Dell, when it was doing his return to office, came to everyone and said, you got to come into the office. People didn't do it. So then they started little threats. Said, well, if you're not going to come into the office, just know you're not going to be eligible for a promotion. And people still didn't do it because they were like, why would I want to be a manager? Managers get trashed and get made fun of and get criticized. World. Look at our entertainment world. Every manager you see portrayed, Michael Scott in The Office, the pointy-haired boss in Dilbert, the boss in Office Space. These are all people you don't want to be. So why would anyone want to be a manager? So they've got that problem where people aren't going to have career paths. And then what are they going to do? They're going to leave. They're going to go start their own companies. And the people that are going to do that are the good employees. The second problem is they are, in essence, shortening their bench. Right? Every organization, successful organization, tries to grow from within so that their executives are well steeped in the business. You want people raised up so that they can get to that VP level eventually, and then that VP to C level, and then that C level to CEO. You want to promote this from within. That creates that continuity. It creates that knowledge. And that's really where you want to go. They are, in essence, shortening their bench. They're taking managers and getting rid of them, and then they're not going to replace them, and no one's going to want to go up there. So the next time they need a VP, they're going to be like, we don't have anybody internally, or we only have these three people, and they're not the people we want. They don't have the skill set we want. Then they're going to get into succession planning problems. Again, I'm working with one organization now, a client, and they're looking and going, you know what? None of the people we have at a certain level we feel confident can move up to the next level. It's a huge concern for them. So imagine if you're a CEO and you're looking for your successor and you look down and there's nobody there, or the pickings are really slim. It's concerning. And just mark my words, put a bookmark on this, because here's what they'll say. Oh, this younger generation just doesn't work as hard. They don't have the commitment. They don't have this. They'll blame anyone but them. They took the exact path that has enabled people to get to this level and eliminated it. And they'll think, because they didn't go through it, right? Zuckerberg started the company, a young founder, stayed with it. He had no clue about it. And he seems to think, so what's going to happen? Is his organization just disappear and then some new founder will start something new? No. They're going to keep going, but they're going to have bad leadership and they're going to have problems. And it's hard enough to find a CEO. Good CEOs are not in abundance. By creating even fewer, there's going to be bigger problems. And that one or two good CEOs, man, they're going to have 40 companies fighting for them, 50 companies fighting for them. And it's going to hurt the company because they're going to have to pay even stupider money than they pay CEOs now. To wrap it up, in essence, yeah, managers need to be better. And it's what I do in my career. I will be the first to tell you that there are too many bad managers out there, too many average managers. And there's a lot of work to be done to select the right people to be managers, to teach them the right behaviors, to coach them going forward, to keep them growing. That's something we have to do more of. But eliminating them is not the answer. Eliminating them is the answer to how do I cut costs. Eliminating them is not the answer to how do I make my company sustainably successful. And maybe they don't care. Maybe Zuckerberg's like, by the time this hits, I'll be gone. Maybe Andy Jassy's like, yeah, by the time this becomes a crisis, it won't be my problem. The head of Walmart may be like, this won't be a problem for 15 years and I'll be gone in 9. I don't know what they're thinking, but I am telling you right now, they are going to face these problems. I hope you kind of enjoyed this, and please let me know your thoughts in the comments, where you think I'm right, where you think I'm wrong. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to my channel, hit like, give me comments, share it with people. I'd love to get a lot of people involved in this discussion. And I hope you all have an awesome weekend and can work for a great manager.